a true-false review. There's no true-false questions on the exam other than, which of the following is true, not true, which one of the following is false. There's no true-false like this. This is just a way to test you. So just everyone can shout the answers. Japanese traditionally considered Amaterasu as the ancestor of the emperor. True. That is a true statement. Samurai might serve daimyo, and the most powerful could be named shogun. True. Japan enjoyed a century and a half of peace during the Sengoku period. False, right. The Sengoku means country at war, right? Believers in Shin Buddhism followed Amida and might rise up in rebellion against samurai in Iko Iki. That is true.
Is that where they held out for a long time?
That's Shimabara. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, they did. There was an Iko Iki incident which they held out for 20 years. That's why they were so dangerous. But yeah, good memory. Francis Xavier was the first Protestant missionary to Japan. False. He was a Catholic missionary. Oda Nobunaga united much of Japan, was betrayed by a vassal, and died before he could become shogun. True. That is true. Toyotomi Hideyoshi became the first shogun of Japan, but died without children, so someone else took the office. False. He had a kid. He was 5 years old when Hideyoshi died, so he totally got betrayed and then killed later on, forced to commit suicide later on. It was his nephew. He adopted his nephew. But yeah, you're right. It was really bad, right? He adopted his nephew because he didn't have a son. Then he had a son, so he framed his nephew and had him killed, which was not cool. And then his own son was forced to commit seppuku later on. Hideyori, the son of Hideyoshi, was attacked and forced to commit suicide by the Tokugawa as he remained a political threat. True. That is a true statement. Yep. Tokugawa Ieyasu became the first shogun and ruled Japan as such until his death. False, right? Why is it false? Yeah, he retired early so he could help his son govern. Tokugawa Ieyasu's victory at Sekigahara allowed him to become shogun. True. That's a true statement. Nikko Shrine is where the emperor received worship. False. Who receives worship there? Tokugawa Ieyasu receives worship there. Remember, that was his effort to try and strengthen his rule. He wanted his own myth. Right? Remember we talked about you need money, muscle, myth. He wanted to create his own myth independent of the emperor. So he said, now after I die, I became a god. Fumie was the Japanese term for hidden Christians. False. That's what they were forced to step on. Kakure is the term for hidden Christians. Portuguese traders were allowed to remain on the small island of Dejima so Japan could keep an eye on the rest of the world. False. What would make it true? Dutch, right? They were Dutch. It may seem kind of weird, but I'm trying to emphasize there was this difference between Catholics and Protestants. The Catholics were considered too dangerous, so they weren't allowed to stay. The Portuguese were Catholics. The Dutch were Protestants. There weren't any Protestants in Japan, so they weren't seen as much of a threat. They couldn't, lead a Protestant rebellion in Japan because there weren't any Protestant Christians in Japan other than the Europeans. Tokugawa Ieyasu played a key role in consolidating Tokugawa power, even though he had never led troops in battle. True, yeah, we just talked about that. Shimabara was more of a rebellion in which Christians took part rather than a Christian rebellion. True. Ronin is a term for masterless samurai. True. Courtesans from Yoshiwara made excellent subjects for ukiyo-e. That's true. What are ukiyo-e? Woodblock printings, right? So there were lots of pictures of courtesans. Tokai Ranzan was a Buddhist thinker who argued that marriage prevented people from attaining enlightenment. Lots of stuff wrong with that, right? He was a Confucian thinker who argued that the major purpose of marriage was procreation. We just talked about him. Ogyo Sare argued that the way had been discovered by the sages and therefore could not be changed. False. It's the exact opposite. He thought it could be changed. Ando Shueki was an imperial loyalist who believed the emperor should rule directly. False, right. He was the anarchist. Motori Naga opposed Confucianism as corrupting the naturally virtuous hearts of Japanese people, and he believed that all people owed a debt to Japan because Amaterasu was the sun itself. True. Aizawa Seishisai had ideas that resemble modern anarchism. False, right? He was a shogunal official who he liked the emperor, wanted the emperor to be centered, and his major thing was he wanted to blow up the Westerners to stop them from coming in and spreading Christianity. So he was not an anarchist. He liked the government. He just wanted the government to be centered on the emperor. Matthew Perry forced Japan to open its doors to the West. True. Treaty of Kanagawa allowed trade but not diplomatic relations. False, right. They had diplomatic relations before, this just added trade. Or no, I'm sorry, it was the other way around. It allowed diplomatic relations, but not trade. Townsend Harris successfully negotiated a treaty that gave Americans the right to trade in Japan. True. Ii Naosuke defied the emperor and asserted the shogun's power until he was assassinated. Right, and he remains stable to this day. Shishi were pro-imperial loyalists who assassinated foreigners and those who supported interaction with foreigners.
We assessed them all right.
True or false? True, that's true. They weren't like taxing people, they were killing people. This is I'm tired sometimes when I do this. This is what I'm doing on my weekends, by the way. Yoshida Shoin believed that Japan should maintain isolation from the West. False. He wanted to copy from the West. He didn't necessarily like the West, but he wanted to copy from it. Sakamata Ryoma successfully negotiated an agreement between Choshu and Satsuma that would help enable them to win the Boshin War. That's true. That's a true statement. The Meiji Restoration named as such because that is what the emperor was referred to. True. Yeah. Meiji Restoration. I can stand to be a little bit clearer. Traditional concepts of Shinto were used to strengthen the emperor's rule. True. Fukuzawa Yukichi emphasized pragmatically adopting civilization in order to strengthen national independence. True. Yeah. The term Zaibatsu refers to large business conglomerates. True. That's right. I got lazy here. I needed some false ones. Yamagata Aritomo argued that only an army drawn from the traditional samurai class could protect Japan. That is false, right? He wanted a conscript army. I think, okay. We will. So.